Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome here to the first AWDC Town Hall of 2026. I think that our town halls have become a well-known concept in the meantime, and as we did during previous editions, we will also update you today on ongoing projects, important industry updates, and upcoming events organized by AWDC. One of the standard topics during our town halls is a closer look at the trade figures of Antwerp, and that is also what we are going to start with today. And for that, I would love to give the word to all known by you by as our CEO. Thank you.
Yeah, I added one more thing. So tariffs is the first topic that we're going to address. You can go to the next slide, Marie. Because it's a topic that is obviously very hot at the moment. It will remain hot. That is my prediction for 2026. And we received a lot of questions. Now, I want to start by saying and really explaining what happened recently in regards to tariffs. We knew this was coming. I mentioned it in previous town halls as well and in other communication. The case in front of the US Supreme Court would be a defining element in tariffs going forward. The Supreme Court, as predicted by some, has ruled that the basis upon which Trump worked to impose broad tariffs to, let's say, most of the trade partners of the US, which is called IEEPA, shortly summarized as a sort of emergency procedure, was considered not a valid basis for instating all those tariffs. The result, and I can't stress this enough, is chaos, especially on the US side. And a lot of questions asked by you, by ourselves, by other industries, by European Union, by the Belgian government, by individual member states. What is happening now? What we do know is that every executive order that was issued regarding tariffs, including the trade agreements that were concluded, such as the recently announced agreement between the US and India, the US and the EU, refers to this mechanism. And that is problematic because obviously that has canceled, which means that those trade agreements technically would need to be revised. What happened over the weekend is that President Trump, as a response to the court's decision, has instated a 10% blanket tariff globally. We have done checking up until literally, and I can say that from the information that we have now, this 10% blanket tariff applies to all the diamonds that are imported in the US, regardless of what their origin is or where they come from. This is a mechanism that is invoked under something which is called Section 122. Limitation in terms of how long this mechanism can be deployed, which is 150 days, which would basically lead us into, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere July. But we do see that in practice, this is also information that was confirmed to us by the shipping companies, that the Customs and Border Control are implementing this 10% tariff. What we do expect is that after the 150 days, new tariff schemes such as Section 301 are to be expected after this time frame. What I also want to say is that for us, and we're not the only ones, and I'm sure this is valid for other countries who have different or had different agreements, that we do feel pretty much everyone agrees with our point of view in the US and in the EU, that a deal is a deal. And what I mean by a deal is a deal, that there was an agreement made between the US and the EU. A lot of time and effort went into writing those, defining the scope, and clearly also defining exemptions which diamonds were part of. And that we do hope that this deal between the EU and the US, with all that it encompassed, could be revived in some shape or form. Now, obviously, as I said, the chaos is there's a lot of chaos currently on the US side. We are in contact with all the stakeholders involved on all fronts, US, EU, Belgian government, and we will continue to monitor the situation as well as fight for the fact that for us, the variables haven't changed. The narrative there's no reason why diamonds should be on a tariff list. So we will continue to work for that. So that I think is in a nutshell what you need to remember from this slide is that currently the 10% tariff will apply when you ship to the US. That the exemption that we had gained is no longer valid. We can move back to the agreement as it was concluded between the EU and the US. Next slide, please. Then I'll talk a little bit about the trade figures. I think the majority of people will know these figures. We're already at the end of February, and we released them at least a mistaken. So what you see here is probably not new to you, but just to reiterate, 2025 was not a great year once again. Overall, there was a minus 22% in terms of value of goods that went through the Diamond Office, in and out, export, import of and other loose stones. I think overall what you see, and this is not news to you, and you'll probably experience it much more than I do, is that we do see that in terms of the total import of carat and the total export of carat, but especially the total import of carat. This is where we see that prices have continued to. If you look at the difference in import of carat, minus 8.8, whereas the value of that import is minus 20. This tells you obviously a lot about the value per carat and the value reduction in prices. These figures are all available at our website, including the figures on rough in terms of carats and dollars. Again, I don't think this will come as a surprise. These are things that you feel and have experienced over the past 12 months yourselves. We see a reduction once again in terms of exports and imports. I always say the same thing in these slides. This is we see across the board. There's no denying that this is a global tendency and not just simply something that we experience in Antwerp. Unfortunately, getting figures out of competing hubs is not always that easy. So we're going to continue giving you these figures, but please, I urge you to use your own experience. You're all much better placed than I am to look at these figures. When you see the polished, we see a similar, less pronounced, but let's say a similar evolution. Needless to say that we in the current environment, and I think is a perfect example of how geopolitical influences and things like tariffs have a massive impact on the instability in our industry in terms of trade. This is what you see reflected here. And if we go to the countries, specifically for nations for polished in value, I think one figure that says a lot is the USA as a destination for polished diamonds, considering the tariffs. Don't forget that it was only late September. It was retroactive, but I don't think a lot of people used that option. It was late September. We got the zero exemption tariff on polished diamonds with origin Europe and origin Belgium, obviously included in that. For the most part of the year, there were very heavy tariffs on, for example, polished diamonds with Indian origin of no less. And this is reflected in the figures that you see, because obviously we also act as a distribution center for polished diamonds with origin, for example, India or other countries. So I think this is helpful for us in our narrative towards our US partners. I think most of you saw that we had the US ambassador visiting us last week. Was a very interesting visit, a lot of interesting conversations, and helpful for us also to stay in touch with US side on a very high level, to keep advocating our case that tariffs on diamonds should be dialed back to zero again and not. But it does show you very clearly what the impact is of these phenomena, and obviously also other factors such as the competition of lab-grown diamonds, etc., etc. The next slide I wanted to add, because I do want to give you a little bit of an insight. Again, those figures are available on our website in our system, so you can browse them yourself. You can download them and work with the data that you can find. But I just wanted to highlight the dark line is 2024, the lighter line is 2025. And what you're seeing or what you're looking at is the total value of diamonds import and export in $1 million month. And I think it's very important to, if you look at the lines, you can see, and this is actually something that if we look at the last 6 months of 2025, we see that the difference between 2024 and 2025, instead of minus 22%, is more along the lines of minus 8%. And I can tell you, I think January is already online, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it will be soon. February is almost done. I think if we look at the first weeks of 2026, we see that the trend of the last 6 months of the year, of the past year, are very similar in terms of sort of regaining some of the position towards the previous year. When journalists ask a question, I always say it's good and it's great to see that there's cautious optimism, but I do want to stress that it's cautious optimism. It's really too early to say that there's a trend put in motion. I think all of us hope so. We are hearing some encouraging news from different places in the world about this, but let's just continue to work hard and work on the issues that are causing us problems and hurdles. The next portion, we've received a lot of questions. Most of you know that we are looking at our compliance processes and how we service the industry in terms of compliance over the past few weeks. Yes, next slide, please. I just want to lay out the sort of basics of what we're looking at in terms of AWDC as a service provider towards our industry in terms of compliance, which, as you all know, and most of you are not so happy about, is a big portion of your day-to-day business today. I just want to reiterate that the role of AWDC is to provide the industry with correct information in a correct way, validated, sector-specific information. General information, why is that word in there? Is because what we can't do, we don't have the means to do it, it's not within our mandate, is to provide individual legal, tax, or accounting advice. So that is really where to draw the line. It makes it easier for us to define what we do and what we don't do to help you in a better and more sufficient way. Our compliance framework has basically 4 major pillars. We have the Department External Affairs, Communications and Industry Relations Department, and then in addition, the 4th pillar is our referral policy to specialists and experts. And I'll just dive in. I won't make it too long, but in each of those. When we look at external affairs, which colleague Michael, you can see him there, is heading that department as well as fulfilling the role of COO. What is their role? Their role is to monitor legislation on the different and various levels. Their role is to interpret that and translating that into sector relevant impact. As you know, a lot of legislation is not industry specific, and it's important that we narrow it down to what is relevant and important for our industry. To validate that information, that is done both on an internal level as well as with external experts when that is required. Preparing certain positions and advocacy for legislation that might be on the horizon or that is on the horizon, to make sure that we can continue to work on pragmatic approaches in new legislation. And that requires obviously a proactive positioning towards new regulation. And also maintaining relations with the financial industry, because 2 things are obviously linked to each other: compliance and legislation and requirements, and as well as how this is put in practice relates to the relation industry. Our focus, I think this was clear, this is the focus of the entire team, and pretty much everything we do is to focus on a pragmatic approach and, where possible, administrative simplification. Our goal is to be as much proactive and not be reactive, because that's always a better position. To the next department, communications and industry relations, and it's done in a particular order for that reason. Obviously, that information that comes from the External Affairs Department needs to be translated into practical communication guidelines, broadcast messages, LinkedIn posts, briefings, templates, etc., FAQs, you name it, they're all in there. And that is the role of our communications department. And you see Ine Tassignon is here, as well as Ahalia Choksi. Their objective is to make sure that it's done in a way that everyone understands what it's about, and that they have very concrete information that they can follow. Our approach, as you know, this has been the case for more than a year, is multi-channel communication. Our approach is that the more ways there are for us to get the information to you, the more chance there is that we can actually reach you and that you have the opportunity to go through the information. The next of our compliance efforts is the help desk. This is headed by Kim van Weensbergen, our head of support services. This is a role that has expanded significantly for Kim. The mandate of the help desk led by Kim is to be the first compliance questions. They will also manage, some people have reached out to us, they will also manage the compliance mailbox. The address is below here on the slide, compliance@awdc.be. In this help desk, we work with a system of ticketing, follow-up, where different departments, where needed, can help and jump in to answer certain questions. And in that sense, there's also a feedback loop to external affairs and communications, because obviously the help desk will be the gauge in determining how much, if there's certain things that we haven't explained well enough, if there's certain things we've missed, if new questions have arisen on certain topics. We also track and measure the activities of the desk. It's important for us to be able to report also to our board, but also to our constituency, you, in town halls, in other information moments, to say, these are the things, this is how many questions we've got. The main hurdles seem to be there and there. So we want to be very transparent on that as well. And obviously, as we go along, we optimize and measure the efficiency of the help desk. Is it needed that we have more opening hours, that we extend the opening hours? Are certain things needed? Those are things that we want to basically gauge as we go along. So the objective is pretty clear, to be able to provide you with fast and consistent answer. This is really important, that it's easy to ask anyone a specific question. There's not a problem with that, but it also leads to sometimes wrong information being distributed or shared, and this is something that we really want to tackle. I think we have proven our worth in terms of information on tariffs. We're a very consistent source of information when it comes to tariffs, and we want to have the same, and we want to reach the same level or have the same level in our compliance information. This will allow us also to better service you, as I said, to identify potential gaps, things that we have missed, things that are unclear, etc. Things that we will do in the help desk, and one thing I forgot to mention, but it was in a bullet, is obviously KYCP and my AWDC, very important tools that we have deployed. And the onboarding and questions regarding those two modules and those two tools will also be centralized in the help desk. External specialists, the fourth pillar of our compliance approach. We realize that within our industry, there's a lot of people with a lot of information and a lot of knowledge and practical experience, especially when it comes to the actual implementation of compliance legislation, AML. Those are the accountants, the lawyers, the compliance experts, the external experts, that we as an industry also rely on. What we want to do is have a better synergy with those partners, and co-organize initiative, share information. And the same principle when I started this part of applies. We are there for general information, but we are also strongly convinced that when it comes to individual cases that may come up around a certain dossier, an inspection, etc., are better handled by specialists. So we will apply an active referral policy where help desk when the assessment is that this concerns an individual dossier where general information is not sufficient in terms of answers, that we will refer to these experts. This also means that we will regularly align with these experts, because obviously we're not going to refer to anyone who referred to. So that is in a nutshell where our compliance approach, how we will deploy that. I say will deploy, but we've already implemented it and we're already rolling. So it's not a matter of starting this. For all your questions, you can obviously go to our website to find tons of information there. And I do urge you that if you have a specific question, or you're not finding the information you need, that you get in touch with the help desk on one of the during the opening hours. You don't need an appointment. You can just walk in. Obviously, if somebody's already in, you will have to wait for 5 minutes. That we have some interesting literature there, so you can spend your time useful. So that was the first part of the presentation, and I think I'm passing the floor to Ahalia.
Yes, you are. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My updates are specifically on the Diamond Office, and I've got two components. So one will be the value-based cashback, which is entirely new to all of you, so don't worry if you haven't heard this before. There's a reason for it. And the second one, all of you should have already heard, which is the due diligence statement on diamond origin. So let's just jump into it. The value-based cashback, I want to highlight and specify that this is specifically for our rough diamond traders, both importers and exporters. Why is this so important? As you all know, rough diamonds ensure that we are and remain a competitive international market. And the ecosystem just benefits from having more rough diamonds here in Antwerp. So what we're doing is we're adapting or applying a cumulative value-based annual cashback system, which in very fancy terms essentially means the more imports and exports that you do in our diamond office, the higher chance is that you would get a cashback for this total. I'll explain to you in just a moment what exactly that means and what that entails, but essentially the aggregation, so the total of your imports and your exports, the significant values of both, will be added to one another, and that total value will then give you a chance of a discount and in different fragments and different segments. So we'll head on to the next slide so I can explain that to you. I know it looks and sounds very complicated, but essentially we have different tiers. So for companies who do an import and an export, so again, I want to highlight this is an aggregation of the two, right? It's a combination of the two. So both your total of your imports and your exports annually, if they're between $0 and $200 million, that means that you would get no cashback. That means you just pay the full annual diamond office fees and costs. If you have an import, or rather your total is between 200 and 400, you would get 50% off that specific part. And the same thing for 400 million onwards, you would get 100% cashback for that specific part. What do I mean by this? I mean that when you have, imagine you're a company who imports $500 million worth of goods, imports and exports, sorry. For your first 200 million, you wouldn't get a cashback on your fees, on the costs specifically. For the 200 and 400 slab, it means that so the first 200 not, but the second 200, you would get a 50% rebate or cashback for the cost that you incurred for that specific part. And then for the 400 million and everything above, so that means your final 100 million is where you would get 100% cashback for your diamond office costs. In case you're not clear or in case it's very confusing, don't worry, we're about to send out an email where it explains it in many more words than I'm currently using. We've tried to make it as simple as possible, but sometimes simple means really writing it out as if we're talking to you. And in case that's not enough, don't worry, our help desk colleagues are more than fully aware of what's going on, so they'll be more than happy to walk you through it. So the information is also on our website. You can scan the QR code here in front of you. So in case any of you want to do that, we'll wait a few seconds. But again, like I said, we will be sending this out by email right after this, and we will also be sending out via our WhatsApp broadcast. So in case you haven't already subscribed to that, I definitely recommend that channel. It's probably the easiest way for us to connect with you. It's directly on your phone. If it's relevant, you can click on it, and if it's not, you can ignore it. So it's the best way for us to reach you. All right, let's head on to the next slide. The due diligence statement on diamond origin. Whereas with the previous slides, we were exclusively talking about rough diamonds. So here we're only talking about our polished diamond traders. So if this is you, please pay attention. As you all know, since the 1st of January, the use of the due diligence statement on diamond origin has become mandatory. And this specifically for the diamonds that are obviously natural, polished, and in scope. And by in scope, I mean half a carat and above. I know that most of you know this, but you would not believe how many calls we still get to wonder or question whether or not it's correct. But we're here to advise you, so don't worry, I don't mind repeating it a few more times. We have made some improvements to the documents based on the feedback that we received, just to ensure that we get this through as quickly as possible. Most companies are doing this extremely well, so we're really proud of the fact that this is working. Here and there have been some issues, so we've tried to adapt the document accordingly. For instance, with the VAT number, the fact that the BE wasn't mentioned sometimes caused a block, so we've added that for you just for your convenience. And we're nonstop in contact with our forwarding companies, with US traders, the Diamond Office itself, so we know what's going on and we're here to support you. The reason we highlight this once again is because we want to ensure that everyone understands why we're using this document. As you all know, we've been going through this sanctions period for quite some time now, and the reason we're specifically talking about this in terms of polished diamonds is because we need to ensure that the polished diamonds do not originate from rough diamond sources, as in coming from Russia. The document is obviously a document, right? It's not full traceability. At some point, perhaps we would get there, but right now it is simply one more step in the process of what you're already doing. The mandate is that you fill in the due diligence statement. And in addition, in your own records, you need to keep record of where the rough origin is of these polished diamonds. So this can be an email, this can be a whole host of other documents. We've made an entire list which has been sent and by email, but will also is already on our website, just so that you've made the effort to ask your supplier what the origin is. So again, here, I really do want to stress it is a best effort case. So you need to be able to demonstrate that you have made every effort to request this information. I know in some cases you've received confusing information. There's certain suppliers who are saying that they will be happy to give you this, but at a certain fee or a charge. Here, I would like to highlight once again, it's a mandate. So this is not something that you're doing because you want to, which if anyone was already doing that, by all means, we're proud of you and double so. But this is really a mandate from the EU. So we really do want to remind also any suppliers who are potentially on this call that this is something that is a requirement here in the EU. So your suppliers, or your buyers rather, will be asking for this information, and you as a supplier could gain more favor by sharing this information freely. So again, if you have any questions, concerns, you're not certain what you should or should not be doing, we have a whole host of information online. We're also updating the broadcast channel regularly if there are improvements or suggestions. And again, we know that this is one more document, this is one more thing, and some of you feel like we're doing this targeted. We're definitely not. This is to support you, and we want to do this in the best way that's possible. So on the next slide, again, there is a QR code that refers to the website, so you can get access to the information. I believe we're heading on to the next. There we go. And in case you're confused or not certain, we have all the information online. So it's www.awdc.be/G7. This has all the information, but this specifically will take you to the page where you find the due diligence statement information. There is, again, we're here to support you. If you have your questions, please ask them online. You can ask them by email, or you can go to the help desk and our colleagues would be more than happy to help you. All right, without further ado, events.
Yes, to end the town hall with, I'm going to give you a view of some upcoming events that are organized by AWDC. And I'm going to start immediately with the first one. So the next slide may come. And that is Women's Day. And it's an event that we are organizing in collaboration with the WGI. It takes place on March 5 here in the AWDC building. All the details about this event on our events page, of course. The next event that I want to announce is the an event that we are organizing in the lead up to Consumer Rights Day. This day takes place on the 15th of March, but we are organizing our event on the 10th of March. And the idea is to inform consumers about the differences between natural and synthetic diamonds and make them less vulnerable when buying diamond jewelry. So that is the goal, the main goal, let's say. We want to protect them against unintentional or maybe intentional misleading by jewelers by giving them access to the right information. We see this role of AWDC. There will also be a gimmicky action, so passers-by during the event can get their diamond jewelry scanned and tested by an HRD expert. So we are organizing this event also in a collaboration like the previous one, but this time with HRD Antwerp. People can get more information on or synthetic material, let's say, of their diamond jewelers. And they will receive also information on the process, on the scanning process, but also on the result, of course, of what the test says. Next to that, we also want to call on authorities to more strictly enforce obligations and to implement stricter regulation on the use of the word diamond without the qualifier synthetic. That is also something very, very important for us. It's a public event, but also a press event. So we are organizing journalists to come to the stand. The event will take place in the central Antwerp. It will start at 11 o'clock in the morning. And the press event will be in the presence of the Minister of Work and Economy, Clarijn Val, Alderman Johan Klaps, and Paul de Wachter from HRD also. So it's a collaboration between different parties. If you are available, then please pass by. It will be interesting, I think. The next event is an update on the consumer market. We are not going to give this ourselves, but we let this to the specialist in this case, and that is Edan Golan. The event will take place on March 17th in the Diamantkring, and it will be in before noon. So it's a morning session. More details find on our website very soon. And then the last event to end with is an AWDC. It's the first time we are going to do this. It's the organization of an AWDC admin week with focus on compliance. Karen already touched on the on this topic and the importance of it. This will take place in the second. We will give you more information also very soon. It will take place in the Diamond Bourse. And the idea is to deep dive into key compliance and banking topics like KYC, AML, also the topic of suspicious transaction reports, the importance of this. We also want you to give insights in AWDC platforms like, for example, My AWDC, but also the KYCP platform. And we are going to do that through a series of short sessions and seminars, which are presented by as well internal as external experts. Before we are having this event or this series of events, we will conduct a survey. And we want to ensure the content that we are giving, that this content truly addresses the current needs of all the admin workers in our industry, because they are the main target audience, let's say, for this week, for this important event. Upcoming events, this town hall, it's so you can check all these events on our website, of course. Very easy to subscribe also, and then it's just, I want to thank you for attending this town hall. It's we're at the end already, and we would love to see you for the next edition, of course. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye everyone, thanks.